would like to introduce the speakers of the day. We have Mr. Hisham Sharaf, the COO of the Tehran project. We have Mr. Simon Nahme, General Manager of Nahme Holding. We have Hamouda Youssef, Head of Technical Affairs, Qatar Green Building Council, and Mr. Paul Walid, Regional Director from Shumbel. We have also our moderator that will be managing the question and the floor itself, Mr. Philip Higgins, Director at Venture On Site. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you will enjoy it. I will pass it now to Mr. Philip, and we will see you again at the last 15 minutes for the question and answer. Please make sure that you ask your questions. Thank you. Pass it to you, Philip. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ahmed. It's been a very difficult time these past few months in all industry sectors, not just the construction and real estate business activity. However, during the past few months, the construction sites have remained active to a degree throughout Qatar, probably more so than in many other regions throughout the GCC marketplace. But life goes on, and as we progress from this crisis time to a recovery of our economies, we are now starting to see the governments around the world easing restrictions and heading towards full business activity in this recovery. In Qatar, we've now seen the official announcement of a 4-phase plan to reopen the business and social life over the next 3 months. But the pause to life, as we've seen it in the past few months, has a consequence. And I'm sure that everyone understands that business for the next few months, if not for the next year or so, will take on a new shape and a new form. So what will this new normal look like for the construction sector post-COVID-19? Well, that's the big question for today's discussion. Our guests bring to the table many years of industry and management experience. So let's hear what they have to say about these unprecedented times that we now live with and are very much involved with. I'd like to say hi to Hisham Sharif, joining us from Qatar. How are you doing, Hisham?
Hi, Philip. Hi. Thank you for having me today, and it's a pleasure to join this event.
Dude, I've been very closely following some of those beautiful projects, the project developments from the Qatar projects team. I do a weekly news update for Ventures On Site, and quite often we spotlight Qatar. I really was so impressed with those floating hotels and some of those really amazing developments you're doing there on the islands. Fantastic. But as we, as we're talking about this COVID-19 and project developers, we often think that project developers in this region do project development because they've got bags of cash sitting underneath their bed, or they're like a wealthy family or a government body who's just got so much money they don't know what to do with, so we'll go and build something. We often forget, though, that I don't really believe that, but some might think that, right? But we often forget that developers are a business as well. You have employees, you have clients, you're building for a purpose. I mean, a strong developer like yourself has an enormous infrastructure where when things get put on hold, like we've seen for the last two or 3 months, your position is no different than mine or the building contractor down the road. Everyone suffers. And so as a real estate developer, what would you see as the measures and strategic changes in business that we now need to adopt because of COVID-19?
Right. Well, thank you again, Philip, especially for talking about the concept of development management and how other people see it. And you're definitely correct. There is a misconception of development management in the Middle East in general. And it is important, and it's not just about having too much money, because we actually don't. We are very liquid, we're very strong, but we're very lean and we're very efficient. Having said that, in March, as a management, we put together a crisis management team covering all aspects of the department, being legal, operation, commercial, finance, technical. And about that, I think we put a very good plan in March that we started implementing it right away. It covers all departments and it looks at all elements and all market players. As you know, real estate development, we deal with every single market player within the industry, the whole real estate value chain, from agencies to financial institutions to constructions as contractors or subcontractors to consultancies. We deal with them all, and we work with them very closely. So we've put a plan to actually mitigate what's happening, not just from a health perspective, but also from economic perspective. And as you said, it's been tough, but we know it's going to get a little bit tougher before it starts to get better. And we started looking, first of all, on the well-being of our team, our human capital, then our clients. So we've, for example, we've done any investor that we have who had financial difficulties, we restructured their payments plan. In order for us to be able to do that, we negotiated all our financial facilities with all the financial institutions, being LCs, LGs, loans, whatever, you name it. We went, we restructured, and out of this, we were able to afford to actually help our investors. On that, we also met with all our consultants, all our contractors. When we restructured, again, our terms of payment or our contracts, we've put a plan without hindering the operations. And I'm proud to say that during that time, we did not lay off any one of our teams. We took care of them because they are our human capital. And we've, so far, even in tough times, we're actually getting even more demand and sales, like basically requests happening almost on a daily basis. So it's not just that we have too much money. Actually, we're very lean, as I said, in terms of operation. And with putting this plan covering all the elements, we are able to mitigate, and we are very confident that we will ride the wave. And if you have any, because as I said, as you earlier mentioned, you don't want us to talk for longer, and I can talk about this topic maybe for a week if I need to. But if you really want to ask about certain things, like technical, for example, we have full value engineering program, again, without hindering the quality of the project. So we've managed our relationship with investors, contractors, consultants, agencies. So if you have a specific question on any element within the value chain, I'd be more than happy, because I don't want to take more time from my fellow speakers.
No, that's okay, because I wanted to go back to one question or one statement that you just made, where you said that you're continuing to see sales.
Yes.
The man on the street might just simply think that no one's really investing in anything today, let alone new properties. What is the effect that COVID-19 is going to play on the Qatari marketplace for real estate?
Well, to be honest, okay, I'm not going to deny that there is a drop in the prices. Okay, it's very clear to everybody. So being transparent, and there's no point of trying to hide that there is a downturn in the market. If you look at the price index across all real estate, be it retail, supply, whether it's retail or residential or commercial. And some sectors are affected more than others because you already had oversupply in certain elements, for example, office space, retail as well, there's already oversupply. Having said that, people say, okay, so the market is dying or there's a crisis. And yes, it is a crisis, but it's not dying. It's a crisis, it's not Armageddon. When we say it's a crisis, it means that we will get out of it. You look at 2008, it was a crisis, but we managed to get out of it. And it's the whole idea is the fight or flight approach. What are you going to do? Are you going to fight it or are you going to fly?
But for the construction industry, in order to get out of it, we need to have projects that are being designed and executed forward for construction. As a developer, are you giving consideration to new projects that are being developed?
Our island is 1.3 million square meter, okay, based on 3 phases. What we're looking at, or what we started looking at, so we're going with construction. Nothing has stopped from day one. Maybe in the first few weeks in March, we had some issues with some of the subcontractors due to the corona. Okay, but we've managed the phasing, and what we're looking at now is actually tweaking the product itself that we're building. The market has been affected, and we have to look at the market very closely. And the best thing, any developer, actually, or any businessman or any industry, you have to tweak your product based on the market. So we know that the spending are going to be less. We know that the interest is going to be less. We know that people will be more risk averse. So we try to tweak the product itself. We try to maybe phase the project in a different way than it was, but we're not stopping construction. As I said, we're not slowing down, but we are maybe restructuring, rephasing, tweaking the actual product a bit to fit into the new market. And it is a recession, it is a crisis, but it's within a year, you will recover.
I'm sure you have many construction companies working on projects
now.
Have you had this? How many? Sorry,
9 different contractors on site, without mentioning the subcontractors. There are about 4,000 labor.
As the client responsible for those projects, have you had involvement with implementation of measures to support the safety of employees working on the site?
Absolutely.
Or have those construction companies been proactive in putting in place the correct measures?
Well, okay, to be very honest, since that we are one of the mega developers and our project is a very strategic, we will deal with type A contractors. And to be very honest, so when we put some or any of the policies in terms of health and safety or all the measures that we've taken from this introduction, to be honest, every single contractor has complied, and also even enforcing it on their subcontractors as well. I must say that the secret for getting out of this crisis is full cooperation between all entities. It has to create a win-win situation for everyone. So the contractor needs to cooperate with the PM, with the CM, with the developer, with the client. You got to look at everyone. You cannot just expect the end user or the investor to keep paying, and you expect no reschedule of payments. Banks needs to cooperate. Contractors, consultants need to cooperate, and everybody needs to actually work together in order to actually ride. And this
are you seeing that cooperation now?
I am seeing that, as I said, we put this plan starting early March, and we started dealing with all our financial institutions. Like we've got many financial facilities, for example, and it has cost. We structured, we rescheduled, we negotiated, it worked. On the same time, we had a lot of discussions with the contractors and subcontractors, as well as consultants, for the terms of payment, for example. And again, this is purely financials, but it has huge impact on everyone. So I'm guaranteeing you, you're still on site. No, we're not laying off people. No, we're not terminating. We're rephasing. But you got to also work with me. After we've done that, we went also to the investor who's, we know for a fact that some of the investors have been crippled with the crisis. They can't afford to pay a payment this month, like in June, for example. We rescheduled the payments. Because if the financial institution were not cooperating, I wouldn't have been able to do that for my investor. So as I said, full cooperation across all the cycle is very important.
Very good. Well, sounds like you've made some fantastic progress there, and we wish you the best, I'm sure. I want to see more Qatar Fund projects. What's happening on the floating hotels? That they're all underway now?
Okay, the floating hotels especially is a temporary solution, okay? It's happening only for the World Cup, and it's for 2022, and it's happening in association with Admiras. They are our partners in that project. And it should cover up to 1,600 keys. Okay, but this is only temporary solution to cover some sort of accommodation during the World Cup without increasing the supply, that permanent supply of hospitality within the country. And yes, it's happening. I think it's one of our very strong initiatives that we're very proud of. We think it's very economic viable. It's helping a big event, a very important event, and again, without adding more supply on the market. So yeah, it is definitely going ahead.
Yes, it's great. Well, thank you for your comments. Hamoda Youssef, you're a very active employee of the Qatar Green Council. I should have met you, 5 or 6 years ago. You would have been a great contact for me. I come from the architectural glass background and have worked very closely with green councils throughout the whole GCC region. But I do know that Qatar Green Council has made significant developments in the past few years with the implementation of very stringent controls for sustainability in construction, and I think that's wonderful. But as we push forward with this recovery, and even just as we'd heard, the price of the finished product is going down. There's a lot of price pressure even on the real estate side. Don't you think that developers may start sort of skimping out on their costs and sort of moving away from some of the sustainable considerations that have been there in the past few years? Or do you think that the legislative controls that you've put in place be sufficient to help support the value of sustainable construction in the future?
Well, thanks for the question, and thanks for giving the opportunity to be with our valuable panelists. First of all, I think, and we believe that the sustainability is actually will help people to recover from COVID, not the other way around. And we can give a couple of examples in there. If we learn something from what happened in the disruption of the supply chain, for instance, relying on more local regional materials would have mitigated this kind of disruption, which would have cost more money to recover. And we have seen in different construction sites how they suffered from relying on, let's say, in single sourcing from a specific location that got heavily disrupted. So this is the starting piece. Resiliency, this is very important. Sustainability is all about resiliency, and how you're building during construction and even during operation can sustain itself and sustain its operation, and resiliency over this kind of, I would say, force majeure or these pandemics. A couple of more examples you can see even during operation. For instance, our Green Key, which is a hospitality certification scheme for operation, our Green Key hotels in Qatar managed to operate on skeleton basis, given the the COVID recovery issues, and the Green Key guidelines help them in how to cope with COVID. And we issued the guideline to how to maintain your sustainability during COVID, and how it can actually help in cutting your costs, saving you money and operation and saving. So it's a saving machine if you put it from this perspective, and it's opportunity to do the things the right way. Being luxurious, you can still be luxurious. You can still deliver a sustainable product and sustainable real estate, which has more value given that it's more sustainable and resilient over what will change. So the short answer, sustainability actually helps in the pandemic time.
Just 1 second, Hamad. Somebody's not muted and they keep dropping in there. If you could mute that for us, it'd be appreciated. Sorry, please continue.
So the short answer, it helps in different ways, especially as we look at the operational side as well. Because if you have efficient equipment, if you have water efficient material, this will help you in running more efficiently during low occupancy, for instance. Another aspect to cover, health and well-being. People now are more aware, are more, I would say, eager to know how the building impact our health and well-being. And this has been in the core foundation of any green building rating system since the start. For 30 years ago, we have been speaking about indoor air quality and green cleaning and all of that. And these are already embedded, so you don't need to look somewhere else. A green rating system can help you to maintain your health and well-being for your staff, for your construction workers during the construction, and even during operation for your occupants. So it actually can raise the value of the property or the asset, given that you already have these in place. You don't need to reinvest separately for health and well-being HVAC equipment, for instance, because they already there.
You'll be moving forward with heavy promotion now on that, the long-term low cost of sustainable construction. Your focus will be in this promotion. It's always been your focus, but even more so now, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's aligning as well how it coupled with the health and well-being aspects that people are worrying about. Given that they have been already there, maybe people were just focusing on energy efficiency or water efficiency and this kind of carbon footprint and stuff, but they were ignoring the other half of the coin, which is health and well-being of everyone. So it's way of, I would say, promoting more how what we call the people planet benefit. A green building help occupants and help the planet equally, and add more value to the owner and the asset.
Very good. So what do you think are some of the challenges that we might face as we transition from this crisis to the recovery phase of our construction community? Do you have any comments on that?
The main challenges will be, from the recovery perspective, is to reinvestigate the supply chain from our perspective, to look for up to bar standards in the local market, because for sure for growing market, some of people will need time from a local. So I think local suppliers will need some push in that direction to comply, to show equal quality of products, so they will have more competitive edge. That's a big factor for construction. Of course, recovery that requires a longer period, given that you are capping a bit the number of people that you can have on site, and how this impact your overall delivery and on-time plan. But again, if your project is already from a sustainable and lean perspective, you can mitigate these kind of things, I would say, much better. But it's way of a learning curve that everyone needs to adapt. And we believe sustainability and green buildings in general offer a clear pathway for recovery.
Very good. Just curiously, are you working from home or are you back in the office now?
We are still working from home. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Most of us have got nice green screen backgrounds. You've got a very natural background, so.
Well, I try.
Thanks for joining us. It looks so lush and green there for Qatar. I wish I could be there. My background is actually a Qatar beautiful shot just from in front of the old Sheraton Hotel,
yes,
looking over to the city. It's a very beautiful photograph.
It's one of our green key hotels. And they are doing a magnificent job when it comes to sustainability and operating during this period.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your time. Mr. Paul, this is a really good segue from what we were just talking about, because Paul is the regional director for Trimble, one of the region's leading suppliers of software solutions to the construction industry. And I know he's got a very impressive team working out of the Dubai office and operations in Qatar and all throughout the GCC region. And I know that many of your people have been forced to work from home, like all of us. Many have been working from home. But as a director of your business, what was adopted by your company and by your employees in the process of thinking through this change mechanism? The way we, we've been virtual, we've been remote for so long. How has this affected your business, Paul?
It's a very good question, Phil. And yeah, we've all, had to adopt very quickly. I think first and foremost, we thought of our customers. So from a company standpoint, we've been used to using technology online for many years. So it really wasn't a big impact from a personal perspective, because, we had the tools. As long as you had an internet connection, then away you go. And so on the customer side, they didn't really see a difference. I would say though, it does lend itself that you tend to work a lot more hours because you want to service the customers as much as possible. So from a customer perspective, I think the main challenges that they had, they were not really set up themselves to work remotely. So what we found was a lot of customers, one day in the office, the next day from the government mandates, you have to be working at home. So how do we continue our business? As a consequence, of course, we helped tremendously from our support team. We covered, I think, a lot more calls to help get people set up. We have technology that allows people to remotely connect. So we have model sharing tools, we have document sharing tools like Trimble Connect, and a lot of our structural products, using cloud-based applications. So I think initially it was really helping our customers get set up with those tools that hadn't necessarily used them beforehand. And once they were all set up, it was reasonably smooth sailing from that point forward.
Did you have to create new software solutions for them, or was this? Did you have to write new softwares, or address technically how they would work remotely?
If we had to write new software solutions, then it would have taken a lot longer, and I think we'd still be at it. So some of the solutions have been in development for several years to make a really solid solutions that work, both from a security standpoint. So they have to make sure that all their data is secure, and a technical standpoint in that how we efficiently are managing that information over the internet. I think what really helped from the region was the government relaxed certain rules on voice over IP that were certainly there before. And so, we're all able to meet virtually now, where a lot of companies, were not used to or didn't have the capability. We've always had that because as an organization, we have VPN, we do regular online meetings with customers to help engage and sort out their solutions. So no, we didn't have to create anything specifically new. We've had these tools for a number of years. It was more a case of customers who traditionally were working from the office and really didn't make use of those tools were now thrown, out of the frying pan into the fire, that, you've got to go ahead and start doing that to keep the operations going.
Do you think that this is something that we'll take forward post-COVID-19, this work from home, virtual communication style? Is this something that will continue?
It's a very interesting question from an organizational standpoint. We've been very used to that traditional way of working where everybody's expected to be in the office at their desk. You want to make sure that they're working, you can see them working. So visually and mentally, they're doing their job. Yeah, the trust is there. I'm hypothetically talking. However, what I do feel it means that everybody's going to rethink about, do we really need, big offices nowadays when we've shown that we've been able to keep the productivity level up and a lot of times exceed the productivity level. If you think about in certain countries, I can take an example for India, not necessarily Qatar, because Qatar, I know you've got good infrastructure and travel around the cities very easily. But if you take somewhere like India, where you step off the plane, you could be 2 hours in the car before you reach your hotel, and then from the hotel to your meeting is another 2 hours. It can be, half of the day is gone just in travel. With this virtual environment, you have your cup of coffee in the morning, you go to your desk and away you're working. And, you can work all the way up through the normal work hours, or you can continue. What we found from a social side within the employees in our organization is they actually have increased their productivity, or let's say they've increased their workload. They don't see it as a problem. A lot of them are workaholics anyway, so they tend to be very happy just sitting on the computer supporting people, or we're doing meetings. I personally, because my head office, I have different head offices. If we look at the US, I have a lot of meetings that go on late into the evening. And those level of meetings where we always used to jump on a plane and have a face-to-face meeting, they've just disappeared. And now we're really in the virtual world.
I don't think that this is going to change too quickly either. This will be something that will continue for a longer period of time. So we need to get used to being in front of the camera, which is pretty cool.
We're doing a good job, I think.
Well, the economic crisis that we are faced with is going to put pressure. We've heard from Qatar that the selling price of their properties is reducing. This is going to put effect on the construction activity. There is going to be less construction activity in the region, and so there's going to be more competition to win that project work. And this is going to put pricing pressure on the construction process. As a supplier of technologies to the construction industry, what would be your advice as we move forward? How do we build for a lower price? Building for a lower price will be something that will drive this transition into our recovery. And so as a supplier and a guy who I know is very well connected to this area of business building management, what would your advice be today?
So I think, there's a number of different aspects on how we have traditionally been delivering construction. Having been in this region for the last 10 years, I've seen how construction sites typically run. So from one aspect, you see a heavy amount of use of labor on site. I think the methodologies in how they actually deliver those projects, people are now thinking more seriously about prefabrication and modularization and being able to cut down the amount of labor they have on site. Because if we think about the COVID-19 situation, The schedules are going to be affected because we have to maintain social distancing, or we have to clean down the job sites and make sure it's safe. So at the back end, when you are actually in the construction execution phase, you're going to have to factor, those into the overall project schedule that you're building. So how do we actually, how do we maximize on that, and how do we actually enable that when we get to site we can execute, and whatever we've built will digitally, in the digital world, because we've all been using BIM for many years now, whatever we've built, how does that actually go on site and replicate from the virtual world? So one key aspect that we talk about is really constructibility, making sure that those virtual models that you've built actually have enough content and information that when you get out on the job site, they do fit together properly. So a very well coordinated model, but as well at a detail level that enables you, to see all of the critical connections and aspects of that structure, that the information is communicated well. And it's, it's every aspect of that building. So having constructible model is a key important thing. Then we look at the content. So, we heard earlier about different supply chain. So it's quite important that when you're building these buildings, you're engaging on multiple suppliers through that construction phase. And so if you want that information to a high enough level of detail that later on you can use for operation and maintain, is, you want to have that real product manufacturing data inside of your model. So we look at content, and we have cloud based technologies. We have clouds that or warehouses, as we call them. So on SketchUp, for example, which is one of the solutions, we have the world's largest proprietary cloud storage database. So anybody can type in any type of manufacturer's information, whether it's a door, whether it's an air handling unit, electrical panel, or whatever, and it will come up, and then you can put that into your model. You've got the relevant details. We also have building data, which is another warehouse platform that's building MEP manufacturing content. So you've got all the pricing data and everything's contained there. So all of these different cloud services is really where the content's going to come from, and you can push those directly into the model that you're working on. So that when you get to the job site, that air handling unit is exactly to the specification that you've digitally created in the virtual environment. The last piece is connectivity. And everybody has a mobile phone, everybody has, is running around with tablets, but what we want to be able to do is connect all of these different services and stakeholders throughout that construction phase, so that you can be on site or anywhere in the world at any particular point in time and tap into a cloud-based model that's hosted on one of the cloud services platforms. In our case, it will be Trimble Connect. And you can open that up and you can share that with all the stakeholders. Not only that, we're actually connecting hardware devices to that as well. So if we're out on site, and it can be at the very early phases. So if we're doing grading of a job site, these are actually connected through satellite telemetry services that are back-end connected back through our Trimble Connect system. And the cab driver who's driving that grading machine can actually see exactly where to move the dirt. It starts at the very beginning, but it goes all the way through to the construction phase and then beyond. So we're actually in the maintain, or where we're doing the quality checks. The last part is
we've been, just before you go on to that last part, I'm curious to hear the last part. We've been hearing a lot about this Contech interconnectivity and the development of that construction technology, but the take up by the contractors has been a little bit slow. I mean, I'm not the only one that would say that. Do you think that post COVID-19 we will see building contractors be more embracing to some of these technologies?
So a few facts and figures of what we've seen. So this was a very interesting area for me to look into, and I wanted to see pre-lockdown what our normal numbers were for adoption of cloud-based service technologies. And then throughout that period where we all got locked down and the months following, exactly what happened. So we can see the impact of the pandemic in terms of people adopting digitization in their different domains, whether it's an engineering company or so on. What we saw was, as an example, SketchUp had something in excess of 48% increase in their web downloads of their product. And then our cloud-based services, where people are uploading the content online, we saw a dramatic 33% upload of product data, manufacturing data, and that can be from individuals or companies, and a 50% download. So people were really driving those tools in terms of delivering on the digital promises of, you know, building that structure.
So that's in the last few months, correct? That's what you're saying?
Yes. And together with that, you know, we've started to see people use the HoloLens technology. We have an XR10 specially redeveloped solution, which is using HoloLens 2. And they've started to take up, because with that technology, you can also remote view from the office to the job site. And so people can actually be out there and they can project. So you can have a specialist in the office. So it doesn't mean he's got to travel and expose himself to the environment. And then you have a technician on site, and he can be instructed exactly, you know, where he needs to go, or, you know, what he needs to look at, or help him, you know, guide him in a certain way.
Did you hear that, Hisham? You can just stay in your office now and look at all those 12 different contractors. You can just push a button and say, hey, I need you to get moving a bit faster on that foundation work.
It saves cost as well.
Save cost, yeah, totally. Yeah.
Very good. You had one more point, Paul, before we move on to Simon, who I look forward to hearing from. So you were talking about constructability and connectability, and what was the other point?
Well, it was what we really call the 3 C's of construction. So constructible, connected, and content enabled. So those are the 3 kind of areas that, you know, we see. You know, we talk about building information modeling a lot, and we have done for many, many years. And up to now, and, you know, it's improving, but this has really been in the realm of the architect engineering office. And when it gets down to the contractor, what typically happens is that becomes a 2D drawing out on the job site. And so, you know, all the effort and time that we've done to build these great models, if we, you know, don't utilize that information all the way through the process, we have a disconnect. You know, we have what we would call a data disconnect. So it's really about getting the information in every position where we need it in a digital format, and still, you know, being a 3D, easy to understand format that someone can go to site and you can actually see, okay, instead of, you know, reading, taking time to understand a 2D drawing, is you can actually see that virtual world, digital world projected out into the physical world.
So you think that we might actually see the true meaning of value engineering as we progress, where we are seriously looking at, you know, cost reduction through efficient implementation of services like this?
That, yeah, for sure. So really that's, you know, improving our process of construction is one key aspect. Managing how we work on the job site also is another key element to that.
Very
and
good.
So, you know, if we can manage our laborers, you know, as they get onto the job site,
Good.
So like a people management tool. So we have, you know, solutions that enable you to manage where people are, you know, so even before they get on the job site, you can do certification checks. If they don't pass those controls, they don't get in. And then when on the job site, you can actually manage where they are moving, you know, if they're not, you know, overly congregating. There's other technology that, you know, is doing that, where we can use VR camera technology so that can actually look out for hazardous situations, and using machine learning and AI is coming in as well.
Well, thanks, Paul. Sorry, I got to keep moving on to Simon. We want to keep close to our time. I was looking at my timer, but it was not in line with the clock. So sorry about that. Simon,
yes.
Thanks for joining us today. You're sitting there nice and quiet. I understand you're from the air conditioning industry.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. Actually, Paul, you mentioned air handling units, so you came to us because we manufacture it in Qatar, and we are Eurovan certified. And you mentioned CCC. I love that. We call it client, contractor, and consultant. You know, the guy with the headache. So we also have the 3C.
Okay, well, so you've been in business for a long time. You manage a very strong company in Qatar. What do you predict as some of the short-term and the long-term industry dynamics that we're going to see in the supply and demand that through this effect of construction activity post-COVID-19?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, we were hit the first week. We were hit big time. You know, we have many showrooms in Qatar, and 50% of our showrooms were closed. So can you imagine? We had earlier demand, but we had no supply, and now we have supply, but we don't have demand. So you know the graph. So Qatar has changed tremendously, you know, on the short term and the long term. Nowadays we have a requirement for supply, right? But and we have demand, but we have to work in a way where we can work in a smart way. So supply and demand exist, but we have to reinvent ourselves in order to cope with what's happening.
Well, we just heard Paul talking about some of the new innovations in construction tech. What are some of the digital technologies that you as a supplier to the construction industry have embraced or are seeing others embrace at this time?
Yeah, again, being a supplier of air handling units and fan call unit and so on and so forth, it was very difficult not to meet face to face. So we had to reinvent ourselves. We have to put new strategy in our company. Our strategy were basically customer focused, and we had to reinvent very quickly our company and to reinvent our business model. Because our business model was pretty much like on face to face and things like that. And we really have to make the customer aware that buying online is possible, especially with a company like us. Imagine, can you buy an air handling unit online? It was very difficult, especially when you meet with a consultant and you meet with a client, because these guys are interface together every day. So it was a bit difficult, but when we reinvented ourselves, and I can say it, we recreated ourselves to convince the customer that you can really buy online an air handling unit, and we've been successful. I remember like a couple of months ago, there was a big hospital that needed to be structured in Qatar, and we were able to manufacture a full air handling unit in 4 days. It was all online. We didn't see no one. It was amazing.
Do you agree with Hamoda and his comments with regard to the green, the sustainability elements in construction? I mean, you're in air conditioning. I'm sure that you face this this concern all the time.
Yeah. Again, Qatar is moving to efficiency, and many of our technology has changed. When you go to green, before you used to call, I mean, technically we used to work on AC motor, and we use EC motor to reduce power and to increase efficiency. Definitely, this is the future, really. I mean, we really have to go on with what the government is doing, you know.
How do you think we, you know, as a construction leader, how do you think we'll emerge from this COVID-19 stronger? What are some of the things that we'll take forward and that we'll be talking about in the next generations to come?
Yeah, always be optimistic. You know, 3 months ago, we thought that the world's going to collapse on our head. If you are in Doha, or if you are in Paris or New York, it's funny, it's the same thing. In 2008, when New York was hit, we were not hit. I was here. I didn't feel much of it, to be honest, in 2008. In March, the whole world felt it. And I've been to many seminars, and people would talk about recovery, V-shape, W-shape, and you know these inventions of the economists, they call it the U-shape, and even the L-shape. I was a true believer of L-shape, but trust me, Qatar is a strong market, especially because we have a target in 2022 The Qatar leaders are really helping us a lot when they introduce the national guarantee. Same to Hisham, we restructured our financials, and thanks to Qatar helping us tremendously in recovering the loss we had for the first 3 months. And always being optimistic is good. And I believe in the V shape. You know, we were hit big time, and now I can tell you honestly, there is demand, but supply is weak. It's the other way around. You know, it was the first question, because the supply chain we had wasn't there. You know, the whole world has changed, and we really had to adapt when we reinvented ourselves and put a new strategy in front.
Yes, I've heard that from so many suppliers of products to the construction industry, but that through the last 3 months, the demand has been very strong, very healthy. The concern, however, is as you know, we sort of catch up on the fact that we haven't been designing, haven't been releasing new projects into construction. And it's why I was so keen to hear what Hisham had to say about the future developments in Qatar, because that will be the telltale signs of that continued recovery that we will see.
Yeah, and you know, recession happens probably because of lack of demand, but also it's lack of supply, because you can have demand, but you cannot have supply. So it works both way. But now we have to cope with more supply, but we have to work differently.
Well, thank you for your time. Guys, thank you so much for your contribution today. Whenever we're faced with business change, it's important that we do our best to read what the future will look like. And no one really knows what the future holds at this time. And as an old mentor of mine used to say, you could just simply read the tea leaves, you know, guess the future. But at times like this, we need to really connect with the voice of experience, and so that we can gain the most accurate understanding of what tomorrow may hold. Guys, thank you for your time. I'm sure your input today has helped everyone that has joined us to simply better understand what business will be like in the months to come. Ahmed, over to you. I'm sure we've got plenty of questions from our audience. So if you could share those questions with us, we'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you. Thank you all, everyone. Definitely, it was like an amazing conversation. I'm sure that if we keep on going for hours, we keep always having something like amazing information for all our guests to learn from you guys.
Well, Paul could keep going on for hours, I could tell you that.
Now we have actually many questions. Some of them are directed to specific speakers and some of them are generic. Definitely, like I have so many questions, so all I'm kind of kindly asking from you to give short answers to make sure that we can like ask all the questions that we received. We have actually many questions for you, Mr. Hisham. I'm going to start with you. Yes, because it's mainly related to the real estate development in general. So the first question is, what aspects in real estate development will change forever due to COVID-19?
It's a good question, but it's also a funny one, because I'm not going to say things that would change. I'm going to say it should have always been like that. So people are going to be more lean, more efficient, very focusing on end user, the benefit of the end user, looking at better financial products, benchmark them, hedging. But this is nothing new. This should have always been the case. But many developers haven't been doing this. Many developers haven't been looking at the best interest of the end user or the investor when they plan their product, when they even master plan their product. It's never about the end user. Like you find a lot of projects around that, especially the Middle East, unfortunately. You'll find very lack of good amenities and services. Now everybody's actually looking and trying to study their project before even hiring a master planner or like to put a concept design. So I think this has changed, but it should have always been the case. I think people are now looking into in a more efficient way and in a more educated way.
Okay, perfect. So we can say the communication and the approach of the project itself, like we change. Like
yeah, every project should start with something called highest and best use analysis. But very rarely when you see a developer approaching that or applying that.
Okay. I have actually a question. I don't know if you want to answer this or if you can answer this, but you mentioned before you had 9 contractors working on the project. And the question is, can you name them?
Okay, I'm not gonna go through all of them. Okay, I'm just gonna maybe mention like the ones on my head right now. We've been doing bidding for the past 2 years. So you have a Jabber contracting company, you have ICT, you have CCC, you have Radco, Ilmana. This is like out of the top of my head, and I would apologize if I forgot any of the contractors.
But if you had Paul's software, you'd be able to push the button and see who they are immediately. They're on your screen. That would be
Well,
helpful.
everyone that was mentioned is a customer. So that's
There
a
you
nice.
go. Okay. I mean, you might not even have to pay for it. So
Great, and I'm gonna use your approach, whatever you mentioned, and I'll just be
Yeah.
pushing people around through my office, just playing around.
Now I'm going to move to the next question. It's a bit generic to everyone, but mainly I think you, Mr. Hisham, as a project owner, the question is, how will the worker guarantee their safety from coronavirus, and till when will those procedures last?
Okay, I believe that we've always taken good precautions even before the COVID, but now we've taken way more social distancing and using bracelets for laborers, also the labor camps. And I think it's also very good because, to be honest, it's reflected on the well-being and of the actual the laborers and even labor camps. As I said, labor camps, the actual transportation of the laborers as well. But to be very honest, we were always working on this because we're related to 2022. So we always had very high standards in terms of the health and safety of our laborers and our contractors. But I think this will have a good impact in the future because VVRization have always been the case and trying to maintain that. This is on laborers and people on site, but it also have a good impact on employees and maybe even cost. I mean, like one of the things that we've saved a lot of cost on is business trips. Like honestly speaking, for the past 3 months, all our business have been through Zoom or Skype, business Skype, and it's perfect. I don't need to travel all the way to Canada or Japan or Hong Kong to conduct a meeting where I can actually do it online. That saves cost. Also working remotely is saving cost that you don't have to have everybody in the office. That could actually save cost on your office space, for example. So I think few things can happen to the positive even after COVID. And it's not just for the health and safety, even for commerciality and financials.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to move to Mr. Hamouda. We have some questions related to sustainability. So the first question is, sustainability initial cost is high, and nowadays we need to limit spending and control tools. How sustainability can cope with the current situation?
Okay, so just to demystify this, if sustainability done right from the start, it's actually cheaper, not more expensive. It's expensive when you look at it as an add-on to your business as usual. Then you can see, okay, I need to pay more for a sustainability consultant or for certification or for a certified material. But actually, if it's taken by the core of it from the start, if through the initial design stages, when you adapt BIM technologies or energy modeling, you actually save time and save capital. Just to give you an example, if you do a right design, you can save from the start from the capacity or your HVAC, just by investing little money in the building insulation, which is much cheaper. So you can actually procure from the start a smaller, more efficient HVAC equipment instead of going for a bigger one. Not to mention the operation savings and efficiency and well-being. So actually, if done from the start rightly, in the right manner, it can actually save from the beginning. That's one aspect. The other aspect is when to certify, which I agree that we have an issue in the market that unfortunately lots of the certifications in the market are very expensive, which hinders sometimes clients moving forward with certification. So that's why even from our Green Building Council, we try now to offer in the market more lean approaches to the certification schemes, especially those into operations. So they're very cost effective and wouldn't hinder the decision making process. But even if you don't certify through construction, put together the sustainability principles from the start, and then maybe you can consider certification during operation. So these kind of things that we are now trying to advise corporates and companies of when and how to address sustainability, just to demystify the issue of capital cost. A good example, Mr. Simon mentioned from NAMA. NAMA has been awarded by QGBC a couple of years ago as a green corporate, given their sustainability embedded in their manufacturing process, supply process, and how they have been promoting sustainability through the heart of their corporate. Having a local supplier and local manufacturer that's credible, resilient, this is a good example how to be more sustainable. If they wouldn't been here, how would a hospital be supplied with the unit within 4 days without importing? So again, this is saving instead of waiting month and money for import and exports and all of that. So these are good examples. I'm glad that Mr. Simon is with us today, because he is, and his company is a living example of reliable corporate. And that's where we are trying to build the capacity for others, because I can see another question of how can we help local suppliers and manufacturers. Earlier this morning, we launched a material labeling scheme that will help local suppliers to, I would say, find a guideline of how to become more sustainable from the manufacturing process, procurement process, and how the material itself can be more sustainable. So these are things that we are, in response to the market, we are trying to build the capacity in there. So short answer, sustainability is not more expensive.
Okay, really good to know about that. So we need to start implementing sustainability from actually the beginning of the project itself.
Yes, and even during operation, even if during operation, there are lots of opportunity during operation to be more sustainable. So there is no building that can be left behind. Even non-green buildings can be made green by endorsing some technology to make them more efficient, having more operational efficiency in the way you operate without even going for hardware renovation. So there are lots of ways of being sustainable.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to move now to Mr. Simon. There are a few questions for you. There is one question that's actually saying that how you are managing to survive as a manufacturer during COVID-19 period.
Yeah, the Ministry of Energy has been wonderful to us. We were invited to speak with them and tell them our pain, and they really understood our pain. And we went and we asked for wage deferrals, and they did help us. They also helped us with the rental. We don't pay rent for a certain period of time. And we discussed with our people. I mean, we have many people. Our employees been with us for many years, and we couldn't let go of them. So we decided to work on the 30–40% reduction of salaries without hurting each and every one. They were very happy to accept it in order to survive. By the ecosystem we have in our company, you know, we help each other, and we were able to survive. By the beauty of our businesses is we can use our synergy and move forward, whereas other people probably are not that privileged.
Okay, I have one last question for you also, Mr. Simon. It's related to the procurement process. How the procurement process go in the construction of a project in terms of material and big ticket product with the contractors?
Honestly, we were suffering. We were suffering for many reasons. For example, we buy our materials from all over the world, and delivery was hit because but the good thing, you know, customers are aware that we have a problem. When you go and speak to a customer, we're going to be late in delivery. It's not going to be a surprise for him. He's not going to penalize you like they used to. So they understand. They are aware. Customers are aware, and we are, as I said, we are customer focused. We have a mindset that we try to tell our customers that we're going to be late in delivering because of a lockdown that happened a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I know very well we were supposed to ship a vessel last week from Asia, and they said, sorry, from India. They said, we are on lockdown now. Can you imagine? And we were supposed to deliver July the 2nd. And we go and speak to the customer. Well, you know, our supply chain is quite wise enough to to talk to the customer and to make him aware of the problems we have so we can deliver to them. So we don't want surprises. And they don't want surprises because it's a chain reaction, you know?
Yes, perfect. We actually have more than 25 questions. I'm really sorry for everyone. We will not be able to answer all of them. So I just want to launch one poll as survey. I would like just to take 1 minute time for you, all our attendees, simply to answer this survey itself.
As we are waiting for the poll, I would like to add a comment that collaboration is key in these hard times. Collaboration of understanding between different stakeholders, from government side to owners to service providers to suppliers and manufacturers. This is a key point in moving forward. If we don't have this kind of common understanding and common interest in success, this is where everyone fails. But I'm glad that in the current situation in Qatar, we have seen a couple of good examples from different, and I mean, this panel discussion is just a short example of how from different sectors people have been willingly, I would say, adapting to the situation and showcasing a good intent to progress in the right way. And that's something that needs to continue. If we learn something from COVID, that people come together and that's a way of being more sustainable in continuity. So that's, I thought just to share this comment as we are waiting for the poll.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Hamouda. Definitely, this is something, collaboration with all of us together, starting from the public sector to the private sectors to the end users. Definitely something really that is needed in this difficult time itself. We just launched now our second poll, and I would like just to remind everyone that on the 8th of July, we will be having another webinar called EcoOrient, related to the related to the environment sector, sustainability, energy, clean energy, and so on. I really encourage everyone actually to participate and to come to this webinar. It will be really an interesting topic to talk for the MENA region itself, not only about Qatar. We actually reached to the end. I would like to thank everyone. Mr. Philip, thank you so much for this amazing moderation. Thank you so much also Mr. Hamouda, Mr. Simon, Mr. Paul, Mr. Hisham for taking out from your time. I know that you are busy people. Thank you for your effort, for sharing your knowledge. We look forward to see you again, hopefully maybe in the future webinar. And we can, as I said, work together, all of us in collaboration to make sure that the future is going to be a positive future and brings business to every one of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Yeah.